Okay, we've had a question come in from Silk in Leominster, and this question is, what is better when it comes to tackling climate change in the UK, Brexit or no Brexit?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier the Climate Change Act. So the UK,
we were one of the first in the world with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we've set a golden standard. Other people have adopted similar kind of approach. We're regarded within the EU as being a leader. So there are a number of concerns around Brexit. Number one is for EU states that are ambitious, they're worried that us not being there in the Council of Ministers, so negotiating with other governments anymore, will mean that climate change isn't taken as seriously. And also not having us as part of the EU negotiating team at international conferences. So there's the COP going on in Katowice in Poland this week, and the UK will be there as part of the EU delegation. So there's concerns that not having us there could be worse for the EU,
yes,
because we've got really well-trained diplomats. We're good at climate change. This is a policy we've taken and really run with. So there's some negative implications there. The other concerns that I've heard raised are around low carbon transition. So to be able to make the transition to a low carbon economy, we need to be able to invest in renewable technology. And one of the ways that we've been able to do that is through grant money and loans from the European Union. So one major concern is that we're not going to have access to those funds anymore, and that particularly if we have a no-deal Brexit and there's an economic shock, that there isn't going to be money available
to plug that gap.
Yeah. The other sort of concern is that when we come out of the European Union, that we might, although we have the Climate Change Act, which commits us to long-term standards, governments can walk away from that if they want to, subsequent governments, and businesses are concerned that we're not going to have that stable long-term policy framework that we have at the European level. And in fact, there's been lobbying today from businesses about the fact that governments need to be taking climate change more seriously. So there's no reason why the UK on its own cannot continue to be a climate leader. It will still need to, and hopefully will, work with other international partners in the EU in setting standards, but there are some concerns about our ability to access funds and whether or not our policy framework will be as stable as that we have at European Union level.
Okay. So an interesting kind of policy area where we're actually a bit of a leader.
Yes.
Yes. That was the last question that we've had come in. We've covered so much ground there. That was really, really helpful. Everything from kind of fishes to climate change to fracking, you name it. I guess all eyes on what happens with Brexit in terms of where we go next. Thank you so much, Professor Charlotte Burns, for coming in and answering our questions. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much to everyone watching. Coming up on Wednesday, we'll be running the last of these Q&As, we were going to be discussing what the vote result on Tuesday night meant, but as you may know, it's been scrapped.
Oh, has it?
So we'll be talking about what's likely to happen next for the country, because who knows what will have happened by Wednesday. But until then, take care, and thanks very much for joining us.